Would you believe it if I said I'm a mean agent and I'm really proud of it? If you're buying or selling a home, I highly suggest that you hire a mean agent too. What I mean by that is that we're not pushovers, we have a backbone, we're firm, we stick to timelines. These are the type of agents that you want on your side, and oftentimes we get tagged as being mean. I'm joking, but I think I actually have a really good reputation out there. I am firm and I like things done a certain way, and I want you to know what some of those things that I really set my foot down on and I'm not willing to budge on. Let's get into it. Number one, I'm not going to take your listing unless you're willing to prepare your house properly. I put a ton of money and time into marketing your home, and I'm not going to do a good job unless you do your part first. So you need to declutter, you need to get all the junk on the side of the yard out there. You shouldn't have bicycles and big wheels. Do they even have big wheels? I don't know. That probably dates me, but you know what I mean. The house has to look immaculate. Think model home. I did an entire YouTube series on my channel about the houses that I do videos on, so I'll link those down below. But please watch the videos. You'll see what a house is supposed to look like when you put it on the market. And if you're not willing to do that, I'm not your girl. Not just for myself, but it's not doing you any service. You're gonna wonder why your home isn't selling, why you're getting lowball offers, and not putting your best foot forward up front could be the reason. I don't want to be the agent to teach you that. Either you work with me, you're willing to do the prep, or you don't. Some of you right now might be going, oh my goodness, how do I know if my house is ready? Well, when you hire me, I will guide you. I've done several videos on this topic, which I'll also link down below. There'll be decluttering tips, staging tips. I have a great resource guide for sellers. It's also going to go over some pre-home inspection items you may want to look at, great staging tips, and some questions to ask your buyer or your listing agent, and it's free. So it's down below. Number two is that it may anger you, but I'm really just not flexible with my compensation. This is my job, it is what it is, and I'm very, very reasonable for the offerings that I provide for my clients. In fact, I've never had a client say, wow, you know what, she wasn't worth it. I go above and beyond. I work 70, 80 hours a week. I have no life, really. I know a lot of you always say, Angie, you need to have balance. And it's true, but I'm passionate about this, and I think there's a time and season for everything. So when I take you on as a client, you are my priority. I mean, truly you are, and I expect to be fairly compensated for my education, my expertise, and the marketing that I put towards your property. So I am firm with my compensation. Not against anyone out there negotiating compensation. I think it's a great idea. A lot of the people that you're interviewing right now, meaning the agents out there, they're not offering full concierge experience, right? They're putting a lockbox on, sign in the front, home on the MLS, and then you don't hear from them for a long time. If you're a buyer, you may be running around all over the place looking at properties because your buyer's agent isn't hustling. And of course, in that situation, I think you should get discounted compensation for discounted services, but that's not what I offer. And so I'm very firm with my offering, and you should be very firm about what you're willing to pay someone based on the services that they provide you. Okay, number three, and this drives me crazy, and I'm really mean about it. As a realtor, we're not supposed to be doing furniture sales. So if your buyer presents an offer and says, hey, I'd like these items in the home, you're going to say no for a couple of reasons. If there's a loan on the property, the lender won't allow personal items to convey with a property if there's a loan on it. Now, if that's a whole nother thing I can guide you on. If it's cash, that's a whole nother thing. But do not have any conversations about selling any items until all contingencies are removed. And I am serious about that. Here's the reason. Because usually the sellers think their furniture is worth much more, and the buyers don't feel the same way. So they may say, yeah, we want it, but they don't want to pay your price. Or the seller, wants a certain price, the buyers agree to it, and then there's some huge discrepancy on both sides, and it can get emotional. So here's a little helpful tip. If there's furniture that's really valuable to you and you don't want to take it, do an estate sale, but you're going to want to do that before you list the home. Take it to a consignment store or pay it forward to somebody you know who's going to love it and enjoy it. Or take it to a pod and stick it somewhere so that the buyers don't see it and you don't have to negotiate over it. If it's something you do want to sell, you can negotiate later, but you want to make sure the buyers are through the contingency period. All contingencies have been removed. Number four, homeowners are not allowed to be there showing any open house or any final walkthrough or inspection. They're not allowed to be there in my book, and I'm firm about this because I keep buyers and sellers away from each other because emotions can run high. My goal is to keep the transaction moving forward for you. I did have a situation where the homeowner was adamant they wanted to be there for the home inspection, and the buyers were a little uncomfortable because they want that time to just go in, to visualize the home, visualize themselves in it, have fun, and not hear this homeowner who they've never met talk about all this history of the home, all the memories they've made there, and make it all about them. And you have the home inspector there who's pointing out flaws and showing the buyer things that are wrong with the home, and the homeowner gets mad and super emotional, so I like to keep them separate. It was very uncomfortable. That situation, the buyer actually backed out because they thought the homeowner was just going to be too difficult, and it just became a thing. So I don't allow any of my sellers to be there at the property. I know they get frustrated sometimes, but it's my job to sell your house for top dollar, and I don't care if you get mad. Number 5, I'm not going to discriminate. Now that probably seems like an obvious, right? Well, let me give you an example. I've had sellers say, we only want to sell our house to a sweet family because we raised our family here, raised our kids here, and we only want someone else who's going to raise their family in our home. That is discrimination. And in real estate, there's only one thing that we can discriminate against, and that's financial strength. So let's say I'm selling your house, we get 5 offers. I'm not going to say, hey, number 4 is the best offer because they're a cute little family. What I am going to say is, let me analyze it all. Let's look at everyone's qualifications and risk. And I'm going to say, here's the net sheets for these 5 offers or 4 offers or whatever it is. Number such and such is financially the strongest. And then you get to decide what you want to do. So that's how I roll. I'm not ever going to discriminate against anyone. Number 6, I'm never going to take a listing where the seller knows that the house is priced too high. You may think like, who would do this? But you see this a lot with expired listings. In fact, I just had a call today. This guy calls me. He says, hey, Angela, you're my number 1 choice, but I watch your videos and you tell me all the time that you're not going to list homes too high. I don't think it's going to be a good match. And I say, you're right. It's not a good match, especially in this market. You'd be wasting my time and your time and wasting your leverage. The most expensive your house is ever going to be is on that first day, the first day it's on the market. So if you start too high, you shoot yourself in the foot. You're not going to get any offers. You're going to sit. It's going to be 30, 60, 90 days possibly before someone makes an offer. And at that point, it's probably going to be a lowball offer. You're not going to want to accept it. And you're just going to be in this crappy position, this bad position. So you're right. I'm not going to take an unrealistic seller that wants to sell their home for an unrealistic price. For someone like that, they should probably find a discount agent that will do it for them. But my time is very valuable. I'm not a fool. I'm here to sell homes and not just list them. If you're selling your home in this market, I highly suggest that you don't get too ambitious with your price. You want to be realistic. If you're interviewing agents right now, I want you to give them the permission to give you the real value. You can say something like, listen, I'm not going to hold this against you. I just want you to tell me the real price of the home. That's actually a benefit for you in 2 ways. You not only get the best price, but you find out if they're going to be honest with you. The agents that are going to be honest with you are the ones that you're going to want to hire. Drill down, figure it out, whatever's close to market value, you're going to want to put your house on the market for that price so you're competitive, and then let the market speak. Here's the thing, I know a lot of you won't believe me. If you underprice your house, the market will speak and you'll get multiple offers, driving it up above market value. I promise. It's called supply and demand. It's very simple, and the market will bear what the market's going to bear. So pricing it too high really just hurts you. Now, number 7, and I really mean this, my sellers get annoyed, but they thank me in the long run. Do not move any furniture or anything off your property until all contingencies are removed. And once those contingencies are signed off and the buyer's earnest money is at risk, what I see a lot of sellers doing before that is that they say, oh, let's start moving stuff out. But the home is sold, we have an offer, but I want you to wait. I've seen some sellers take their furniture and they start packing, and then the buyer finds something wrong in the home in the inspection and they back out, and now all the seller's furniture is moved out of the house, and it's just a hassle. It could be at different locations, or they've given it away. That's always bad. You don't want to have to ask for it back. Or it's stuck in some consignment stores. So we don't want to do that. A lot of sellers will say, well, we're just in a really short time frame and we just need to get moving. And that's fine, but I want you to know what can happen if you make that decision. Number 8, I will not show any listings unless the buyer has a pre-qualification or pre-approval or all cash proof of funds. I don't want to waste your time or my time. And if I hear buyers telling me, well, we just want to look around, great. Go to somebody else's property. You can go visit an open house if I'm holding it. Quite frankly, you don't even know if you can buy it and afford it. So you're not gonna get access to the property unless I know you're a serious buyer. I don't wanna put additional wear and tear on the property and on you as sellers. I'm not gonna let a bunch of people through the house who don't even have the ability to potentially afford the home. It's a waste of time. Now, number 9, I'm here to hold the line for my seller. So this is what happens. A buyer will wire their money in for closing and they're just about to close on the property and they call me up and say, hey, especially with a lot of people relocating, they say, hey, the funds are in, I'm getting ready to close on the house, can I have the keys? And I say, nope, you don't get the keys until we're funded and closed. Wiring the funds mean, yes, the funds are there, but we haven't closed yet. And so if I were to give you the keys and the moving trucks, come and something happens, the seller's still the owner and is liable. So I won't hand over the keys until it closes. Sometimes you hear that the buyer wires funds on a Friday. They don't come in until after 2. They think they can get the keys when in fact the home actually doesn't close until Monday. So the buyer's agent should be guiding them to keep them proactive and keep all that scheduled. But boy, do they get furious. And I'm sorry, but it's something, I have to protect my sellers. What happens if I give them the keys and they torch the house and it goes up in flames? It's still the seller's home and the sellers would be liable. So I'm firm on this and I suggest that you do the same. Number 10 is I'm firm when it comes to feedback, and that may feel off-putting or mean. I don't think I'm mean. I think feedback is a gift. So I'm very direct. I share exactly what I get and I don't sugarcoat it. So if I'm not being honest and direct with you as clients, you're not going to get the proper feedback to make the best decisions. Now, no matter how much good feedback I give, a lot of times when sellers get negative feedback, they only focus on the negative and they feel offended, but it's not about that. When you're selling your home, it's a professional experience. And if you don't get that feedback, again, you can't make good decisions and set yourself up for success. So I create an entire spreadsheet for my sellers, and any buyer or buyer's agent that comes through, I'm going to put on the spreadsheet, put the date they arrive, put their feedback, and share that with you as my client and sellers so that we can keep our plan going the right way. And I've never had a client say, oh, we had no idea what the feedback was on our house. So I'll give it to you. You may not like hearing it, but I'm honest, I'm transparent. This is what selling your house looks like when you're working with me. Again, feedback is a gift. I actually sold a house based off of feedback. I just remember this. And I was able to put a deal together that worked for both the buyer and the seller based off feedback when we were in like a tight little crunch. So feedback is a good thing. Number 11 is I require every visitor through our open house to sign in. I have an iPad. I ask them to sign in before they even get to the front door. There's a sign that says, hey, for security reasons, we're going to request that you sign in before taking the tour. So if I get a visitor through open house that says, nope, I don't want to sign in, I'm like, okay, then no, you don't get to see the property. If they say, well, I just don't want to give you my contact information, I don't want to be spammed, I can say, okay, well, you can leave the property. This is a very expensive property and I don't know who you are. You're not going to just come in, run around my client's house unless I know who you are and I have a way of reaching you. So I can't have people that we don't know coming into these open houses, wandering aimlessly. You don't know what can happen. So I'm a stickler about that. If they're serious about the home, they'll sign in or they're going to come back with their agent. Now, number 12, it's ultimately the seller's decision, but I dislike contingent offers. Meaning this is when the buyer presents an offer saying, well, we want to buy your house, we're presenting an offer, but we still need to sell our house first. Will you work with me? I say, have them put their house on the market, get it under contract, get through contingencies, and then give us a call. But we're not going to hold up our house sale because we're waiting for them to sell their house. It's risky for you as a seller, especially since you don't even know, who their buyer is, how long it's going to take them to get a buyer, and if that buyer is going to stay through the contract. So what happens if their buyer is contingent? It can be a mess. I've actually had really great success managing multiple contingent offers. I've done it quite a few times, but I don't want to do it if we can avoid it. Once they have a contract and contingencies have been removed, call us, we'll help you. But I know you sellers are out there like, yeah, but I don't know where I'm even going to go. We have the time, it could work, but there's a lot of options. You don't want to just settle. I'm a really mean with sellers when it comes to closing standards. We close on the property and the house has to be professionally cleaned. You have to get your trash off your property. Those trash cans can't be full. It's not the buyer's responsibility. And a lot of you are like, well, we'll just have the new buyers take out the trash can and it's going to come in a few days because that's when trash pickup is. No, it's unacceptable. Unless approved by the buyer, the trash has to be off the property. I'm mean about this because it's common courtesy. Your buyer is spending a very expensive price tag on your home, and there needs to be respect for that. I would want it to be the same for you on the other end. So this is no longer your home. Don't leave your trash, and the house should be very clean. End of story. 14, I'm really mean about this one as well. This is where a buyer calls me and says, hey, I'm thinking about making an offer and I'd like to get a closer evaluation of the property. Is that okay with you? I want to peek in the attic and I want to do my own kind of inspection before I make an offer. Are you okay with that? Nope, absolutely not. This is not your house. It's someone else's residence. If you want to submit an offer, there's a period in the contract that states that you can do your due diligence and your inspections, but we don't do that before we have a contract in hand. Think about it. What happens if the guy's up in the attic measuring, doing something, and he falls through, or he hurts himself, or he damages the property? There's no repercussion because there's no liability because we're not under contract. So we don't do this. I'm firm about that and mean about that. A lot of you are hiring agents that are still using combo lock boxes, and you have agents that come in that are knuckleheads. They leave a door open or a window open, lights on. They create a disarray to the property, and the agent has no idea who was in what time. There's no tracking system. So combo lock boxes are not good enough for my client. Number 15, and this angers a lot of my buyers, but I'm like, hey, it's contractual. All residential property is sold as is. So that means when you sign a contract, when it's fully executed, the buyer wants that property in the same condition as when they wrote the offer. So those little holes all over the wall, the nail holes that were there during the time when they signed the contract, need to still be there. So I advise my sellers, don't take the nails out, don't patch the holes unless the buyer has agreed to it. And the reason for that is if the seller were to patch up the holes, put paint on it, and now it's a different sheen or it doesn't match exactly, the buyer could potentially come back and say, hey, I'm suing you. Whether it's small claims or not, it's just not something you want to deal with. And so I say stay away from it unless it's negotiated with the buyer up front. Number 16, I always ask my sellers, hey, is there anything on the property that you want to exclude when you go to sell your home? Like light fixtures, chandeliers, window treatments. And if they say yes, I want my entry chandelier, or I want those window treatments, I don't want to leave them behind, okay, fine. But what you need to do then, instead of putting the house on the MLS with these beautiful things being presented, is take it all down before we take pictures. You may think, well, Angela, I think it'd be really great to sell the home, this beautiful chandelier and these beautiful, window treatments. Well, great, then leave them, because I promise you, when the buyer sees them and sees how beautiful they are, then they're gonna want them. And if you're hell-bent on keeping them, then we have an issue. And now it becomes emotional. So if you're willing to negotiate, leave them. If you're not willing to negotiate, remove them, and then figure out a way to replace it with something more affordable. Eliminate the drama. I'm very firm with my sellers about this, and it sounds mean, but I'm only doing it for their best interest. Now, number 17, buyers. I'm going to be very firm with you that you need to verify all information provided to you. You cannot rely on sellers. Everything about permits, everything about measurements, do your due diligence as a contract says. You need to go down to the city, look up your permits if that's something that's applicable to the home. I want you to do things like research local wildlife. It sounds silly, but there was actually a lawsuit. Thank God it wasn't a seller of mine or a client of mine. The buyer had a cat, and the cat got eaten by a coyote after the buyers moved in, and the buyer sued the seller because they didn't disclose that there were coyotes in the area. It's a true story, okay? So you don't want to be caught with this kind of stuff. In every one of my disclosures, sellers, please listen up. I'll link it down here for you as well. But you should write on your seller disclosures that the seller advises the buyer to check with local municipalities regarding local wildlife. So if there's beetles or rattlesnakes in the area, which you may not even know about, but at least it covers you, not responsible. As a seller, you're not responsible to disclose things you don't know about, but this at least covers you and reminds them to do their investigations. So buyer, hello, make sure you do your own investigations and you verify the information that's provided to you from the seller. Number 18 is I'm really mean about blind offers. This is where we receive an offer, the agent hasn't seen the property, and they just say, okay, here's an offer, accept it, and we're gonna move forward. No. Sometimes they're just trying to get their foot in the door, and they're telling their clients, well, we can always back out. So I highly suggest you want to make sure that somebody has seen the property, whether it's an agent, a friend, member of the family, someone has previewed the home, videotaped it, and sent it to the buyer. You don't want to take your house off the market unless you know they're definitely interested. Don't do it. Don't accept it. Make sure somebody has seen the property before you accept an offer, okay? Now, number 19 is I'm a stickler about timelines. So there are timelines outlined in the purchase agreement, and I like to adhere to them. Time is of the essence for both parties, buyers and sellers. There's a certain amount of days that you get to do all of your buyer investigations, and let's be clear, say it's 10 days. After 10 days, if you haven't finished your investigations, I'm going to push you, and this is the buyer when I'm representing the seller, I'm going to push you and I'm going to ask for further commitment. And if you don't, you're out. But don't worry, I let everyone know in advance. Now I'm constantly reminding you as a seller and the other side, hey, by the way, there's 5 days left until buyer investigations are up. I keep in contact with the loan officer, the buyer's agent. I like to kind of cattle prod everyone to keep everything done and together in the time frames provided, because that's what helps keep us on track and on plan. So I like to stick to the timeline. Now, what your buyers don't really know is when the seller is selling their home that there's so much for them to do. So let's say it's a 30-day escrow and you have a 12-day contingency period, whether it be loan and investigations. And if you remember earlier in my video on letting my sellers move one thing off the property until their contingencies are removed. So this ends up kind of being a crunch. And guess what? They're hiring me to make the process go smoother. I have no mercy when it comes to this stuff. Time is not something we want to waste during the transaction for either party. So buyers, get your investigations done early. It's better for everyone. And you want to make sure you hire a great agent who's going to guide you with that. That's going to be about as firm as I'm going to be. I'm telling you, it's a lot of work, but it's worth it. For some of you who are looking to put your house on the market, or maybe you're just looking for a buyer's agent, I have a wonderful referral network that I can link down below, and I'll link it here. I'm happy to give you some great agents to interview. I highly suggest that you try to interview a few and hire the best agent you can find, because they're going to do the things like I'm doing to make sure the process goes smoothly for you. Okay, lastly is number 20. I'm a little mean, but mostly firm when it comes to negotiations. And the reason for this is not only am I a certified real estate negotiator, but I've done my homework. I know what I'm doing. I've been in the business for 26 years. I worked 9 years in the mortgage industry, 4 years for an appraiser, even before real estate. So I know what's customary and what's not customary. So a repair request from a buyer, I can look at it right away and know if it's code related, if it's frivolous, and what things are reasonable to expect in a repair request, and where we're not going to just give money away to get a commission and get it done and get paid, and then off I go. So I know I'm going to negotiate hard for my sellers. The other thing is if we get a lowball offer, I already know strongly what the house is worth. I do all that on the front end, and make sure you know too. So we already have an appraisal completed on the property. I like to be prepared when it comes to negotiations, and usually the buyer will see eye to eye with me because I've already had that data and justification for any counters or anything that I disagree on my seller's behalf. Once again, I highly suggest you find an agent that's going to do the same for you. All right, thanks so much for watching this video. I really appreciate it. Once again, I will link some of the videos and resources down below. I hope it's helpful. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.